Good afternoon. Firstly, can I apologise to those of you who are locked out of the building? I'm really sorry about that. Technical issue, obviously, but I'm glad to hear from Councillor Williams that it was sorted out in due course and you're all here and welcome. And I'm sorry that you had that stressful time trying to get in. We'll try and make sure that doesn't happen again. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the second half of this meeting of Winchester City Council's Planning Committee, taking place in the Walton Suite at Winchester Guildhall. It is Wednesday, the 25th of September 2024, and the time is 2 p.m. My name is Councillor Jane Rutter, and I'm Chair of the Planning Committee. To my right sits my Vice Chair, Councillor Jonathan Williams. Around the table, we have the other elected members of the committee, and we are supported today by a number of officers, including Julie Pinnock, our Head of Planning, Daniel Lucas, our Legal Advisor, the case officers, which will change with each item, and Claire Buchanan from Democratic Services, who supports the committee and operates the recording equipment. This meeting is being live streamed and recorded to the Council's YouTube channel. Subtitles are available, and advice on how to turn them on is set out on our website. Please can I remind everyone to ensure your mobile phones and any other electronic devices are on silent or preferably turned off altogether. In the unlikely event that it is necessary to evacuate the building, the fire alarm will sound. Please follow all the instructions given to you by our team. Please look at the handout provided on your chairs or on the information slides displayed as you walked in and during the breaks for further guidance about this meeting. To ensure the smooth running of the meeting, I ask that nobody calls out from the back of the room during the proceedings. In accordance with the public speaking protocols of the meeting, those who have registered to speak will be able to address the meeting for their allotted time. If there is any disruption of the proceedings and the committee is not respected, it may be necessary to temporarily adjourn the meeting. Finally, can I welcome members of the public to the meeting? Those of you who have registered to speak, I will call you forward when it is your turn to make your contribution. Members of the committee may ask you questions of clarification, so please remain at the microphone until after members' questions. The microphone is turned on by pressing the button on the base of the unit, and a timer will appear on the screen to remind you of your remaining time. Turning back now to the agenda, and the next item on our agenda, back to the beginning of it. Item 11 is the approval of reserve matters of outline application at land to the east of Sun Lane, Alresford, Hampshire. And our presenting officer is Rose Chapman. Welcome, Rose. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just draw members' attention to the update sheet where we've had an additional comment and a conversation was had with Councillor Power in regard to the removal of some trees. So here on the left-hand side, at the top of the screen, we have the red line plan. This is please note that this is not including any of the external landscaping or the highways works. So the highways works that you can see crisscrossing the site here, these are outside, as is everything outside of the red line plan. For context, this is the employment area for the Sun Lane allocation. On the right-hand side, you can see an aerial footage of the allocation sites. The north of the site, indicated here, has been approved under reserve matters for approximately 300 houses. In the centre, there is some public open space, and those two areas have already been approved under a previous reserve matters application. And at the bottom of the site, which is zoomed in area at the bottom on the left-hand side here, is where this application is for the employment land. Just for a further piece of context, at the bottom you can see Sunhill Crescent here at the point of the cursor, and Appledown Crescent located here at the point of the cursor. In relation, as shown on the red line plan, at the top here you have Sunhill Crescent, and a little bit further down is Appledown Lane. So here we have the proposed layout. In total, there are 22 units of employment that are proposed in varying degrees of size. Matters of access, operation hours and uses were agreed under the previous outline application. So just to reiterate those, the main access is off the A31, which is shown here, this arm of the Highways Works, which is outside of the red line plan. Though there is access from Sun Lane shown here on the left hand side and Whitehill Lane shown here at the bottom of the screen. The operation hours under the outline consent are between 8 o'clock in the morning and 6 p.m. Monday to Friday, and 8 o'clock in the morning to 1 in the afternoon on Saturdays, and no time on Sundays or public bank holidays. The approved uses include office, storage and distribution, and general industrial uses. There were some concerns raised in relation to Unit 1, which is shown here at the top left-hand corner. Due to the open nature of the relationship with Sun Lane, it has been suggested under conditions that this unit is not used for general industrial uses, but only for either office or storage and just distribution uses, which shouldn't generate so much noise. Moving on to some elevations, this is an example of some of the smaller units proposed. So these are units 2, 3 and 4, which would be located at the bottom left-hand corner of the site. They're proposing to use some dark metal cladding in dark grey and a slightly lighter shade of grey with wooden cladding as well. One of the key features that is associated throughout the site are the corner windows that you can see at the bottom here. And just as a further example, this is one of the larger units. This is Unit 7. So the same materials would be proposed with the corner windows used to create active frontages throughout the site. In terms of landscaping within the red line plan, this is the master plan, so you can see a significant amount of planting within the area, which is uncharacteristic of an industrial site, so the applicant has put this in to really increase the verdant nature of the area. Getting into a little bit more detail, so this is the landscaping plan, and you can see, and I'll show in a little bit more detail in a second, but there are native mix hedges proposed around key corners and vantage points. There are wildflower planting meadows, as well as some native structural planting and key trees, including oak trees, beech trees, and yew, as well as a feature tree of tulip trees. Just to get in a little bit more detail, this is an example of the planting proposed around Unit 1. So you can see this crosshatch section here that runs along two sides. This would be the native mix hedge. Along the frontage here and here along the internal roads would be wildflower planting and feature trees. There's also another feature tree, which I believe this specific one is supposed to be an oak, as well as permeable paving used for the parking and pathways. So moving on to some highways tracking. This illustrates that larger vehicles can access and egress throughout the site. There were some concerns raised under the highways officer saying that some of the larger vehicles may require multiple manoeuvres in order to navigate the site. However, this was deemed acceptable within the parking areas. And now moving on to some photos of around the site. So at the top here, this is taken from the corner of Titchbourne Down. And you can see the site access at Whitehill Lane here, going up Sunhill Lane. It is noted that there are some trees that have been removed along here that you can see, and it's understood that these are being replanted to some degree under the 278 works, but I will come on to that a little bit later for another slide. Oh, sorry. At the bottom, this is taken from the northern corner of Appledown Close, looking towards units 2 to 6 and 9. In terms of planting, it's proposed under the outline consent and the previous reserve matters that there would be screening all along this verge here. So while it is very open at this point of time, there will be screening in place as part of the reserve matters landscaping. But for now, it will offer views into the site, but these will be screened. So these are taken from Appledown Close. At top, this is taken from the northern corner looking up towards the public open space. So this is roughly where you would have the access to the site, and you would see Unit 1. As indicated earlier, this would have significant amounts of hedging and trees around it, so there would be some additional screening as well. At the bottom, from the same location looking to the south towards the A31, where units 2 to 6 and 9 would be located. Again, I reiterate that this will be screened. Moving further up Sunhill Lane, this is the view from Sunhill Crescent looking down. The planting that has been approved under the previous reserve matters shows that there would be replanting down this area, so there would be some glimpses from the site access to units 2 to 6 and 9, but these would be heavily screened. And at the bottom, there is a view from the corner of Whitehill Lane. This is not proposed to change. From this view, the trees are remaining. And then just a few photos from within the site. So at the top here, this is the view towards the A31 from Whitehill Lane, which is currently the site access. So the larger vehicles will be accessing from the A31 only, and the access will be approximately where this pile of Type 1 is, coming off the A31. And at the bottom here, you can see the view towards Sun Lane. The gap in the trees can be seen here. The approved planting shows that there, so from approximately here is where the entrance to Appledown Close is. All of this would be screened. And a little bit further up, there is the access to Sunhill Crescent, and there would be additional screening here as well. At the top here, this is a view within the site looking towards the public open space area, and you can just see at the top here the existing solar panel site, solar farm. So this is where the larger units would be located. And at the bottom, this is taken from the ground level looking up towards the public open space. So this is looking roughly where unit 7 would be located. And just before I finish, as part of the update sheet, so this is, forgive the slightly misalignment, I had to put two plans together, but this is the approved landscaping scheme under the previous REM. So you can see the planting that will be along here, along Sun Lane, to either side of the approved access, and these will be replanted in line with this plan. The recommendation is to approve. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So now we move to the public speaking. And our first public speaker is the Ward Councillor, Councillor Margot Power. Councillor Power, welcome again. And you have up to 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, members. As you have been told, the site is no longer bound by mature trees and hedging. And that is not the fault of either the current developer or the developer of Taylor Wimpey developing the outline site. However, it is not, so there's no longer the screening that was in place. Trees have been felled, and as we know, trees break up the impact of a mass of buildings. So the officer has referred to the new planting plan. We know that new trees actually take time to mature before they, sometime, many years, 20 years, before they provide effective screening. This is not just affecting very local residents to the site, it also impacts those people that will be driving down Sun Lane to access the new A31 access at the bottom of the hill. So it's not just a few people. The question for the committee is, how can you best protect residents from the sight of this? The industrial units are not famed for their beauty, even clad in variations of grey and wood cladding. Are there actually measures that you can take, either in conditions or in any other way, to perhaps mitigate the impact on residents until that new planting becomes effective? Maybe shades of green would be more appropriate. And I'm leaving this very much with the committee, because I don't think it's fair on the developers in this case. I don't think it's fair on residents, but we have to do what we can with where we are and what we've got. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Members, do we have questions of clarification for the councillor? My question is, who cut down the trees?
Beg pardon. They were cut down by Taylor Wimpey in response to Hampshire County Council changing the SUDS design. I believe Mr. Jobbins can advise in more detail on that. And that was post the approval of the landscaping plan that you approved in 2018, I think it was. The original overall plan for the site.
Okay, thanks. Any more? No? Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
If you could switch off the mic. Thank you. Mr. Jobbins, your turn. On behalf of the developer, on behalf of the agent.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
You have up to 3 minutes, Mr. Jobbins. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, members. Yes, my name is David Jobbins. I'm from Luke and Beck Planning, and I'm acting on behalf of the developer of the Employment Park, not Taylor Wimpey, on this occasion.
Could you just pull the microphone slightly towards you? You've got a lovely soft voice, which we can't hear very well.
Can you hear me now? Is that okay? I'll raise my voice a bit, thanks. Can I firstly thank you for allowing me to address you today, and also for your officers for what is a very comprehensive and very balanced report. I would like to start with saying this is a very important piece of the jigsaw for New Alresford. It's the final part of the jigsaw, and in many respects the employment elements are the most important. It has already been made clear the application relates to the reserve matters approval and to the parcels themselves within the proposed business park, approved through the early outline planning consent. The outline planning consent itself contains numerous conditions which rightly restrict the operation of the business park and any future businesses, including restricted working hours, no outside storage, and other reasonable limitations. In addition to which, there is a Section 106 agreement which requires a servicing and delivery management plan to be approved by the council along with an employment travel plan. In terms of the siting and design, these follow the principles of the outline consent through the provision of a range of units which will appeal to a variety of existing and new businesses to cater for the economic needs of New Alresford and beyond. The design, we believe, is also appropriate to this semi-rural setting, which includes a variety of materials, including timber cladding, and as you've heard, aluminium, etc. We believe that contributes towards a successful design. In terms of impact upon the nearest residential property, there is a generous separation distance of between 43 to 50 metres or 140 to 160 feet at the very closest point, in between which lies Sun Lane. As a consequence, there is no material impact upon residential property arising from the proposals. This is also the view of your planning officers and environmental health officers, subject to a condition limiting the use of Unit 1, as you've already heard. Finally, I would like to emphasise the importance of approving this application in terms of promoting and assisting existing and new businesses within New Alresford. And I can do no better than refer you to your own economic development team, who in responding to the application state the employment part proposal supports a vibrant economy outcome for the Council's Plan 2020 to 25 and the following aims: new offices and workspaces to meet changing business needs in areas with sustainable transport links, more young people choosing to live and work in the district, and offering our market towns and rural areas a more distinctive and competitive offer. And existing businesses are supported and new and relocating businesses attracted. I think, members, I'd just like to finish in terms of in light of the recommendation to approve, and I hope you agree that the proposals will support the economic well-being of New Alresford and the wider district and approve this important application. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, do we have questions of clarification? You mentioned travel plans and things, which I know will be approved. Can you just tell me how the access for HGVs and larger delivery vehicles is going to be restricted to the A31? Because the last thing that we want is them going up Sun Lane or any other lanes around there.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and it's the last thing we want. And I can refer to three things. Firstly, and this is outside of our remit, but Taylor Wimpey and Hampshire County Council, through the Section 278 agreement, there'll be signage, and that will be discouraging, preventing vehicles from entering Sun Lane of a certain size. In terms of the A31 itself, I think the actual common sense approach, if you like, is to use the A31 roundabout. And in terms of the servicing and delivery management plan that I've mentioned, that will be submitted to the council in due course for your approval. And I would expect you to want that to limit vehicles using Sun Lane as much as reasonably can be expected. Thank you.
Thank you. Members? No further questions of clarification. Oh, I beg your pardon. Councillor Cunningham.
Thank you, Chair. My concern is that the hoardings, the advertising, signage, etc., may be different from each business to each business. Is there any way that we could have consistency of approach and consistency of design in terms of those items, please?
Madam Chairman, I completely agree. I think consistency is important, along with the consistency in the design that we've adopted. We will obviously need advertisement consent for the units, so that will be again subject to further control and approvals. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Lovely. Thank you very much indeed. You may return to your seat. Thank you. Rose, did you want to add anything to your report subsequent to public speaking?
I don't think there's anything additional that I could add, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, members, we'll take questions on any part of the report. Just please give me the page number for your particular query. Councillor White.
It's about concerns have been raised about Unit 1 as the unit that's probably closest to the residential area and the most visible. I think page 270 refers to that. I couldn't find anywhere what the height of that building is. It might be in there, but I couldn't find it, so I'm not sure. I can kind of visualize what kind of height we were looking at for that building. And just to mitigate the visibility, what the depth of that green buffer is going to be by Unit 1.
Thank you. So in regards to Unit 1, that was reduced in height by a metre. So I, off the top of my head, if I cannot find it, 259. So yes, it was reduced by 1.5 metres. So off the top of my head, I cannot remember. I believe it's been reduced to about 11 metres now in maximum height. And that was a reduction. So as you look at it from Sun Lane, there will be a step up in heights of buildings. But this specific one has been reduced in height so that there is a limited impact from residents looking in from Sun Lane. Again, the exact size of the buffer, I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. I don't know if I've measured it specifically on the plans, I'm afraid. It's no, it's not there.
I think it mentions about a sort of average of several meters, doesn't it? Yeah.
So the external buffer is a minimum of 20, but that's from the red line plan up to Sun Lane. So there's a minimum of 20 metres in that sense, but from the building to the edge of the red line plan, I'm afraid I don't have that before me.
But a significant buffer, I think we could say. Thank you. Any more questions, members? Councillor Ashwell.
Just wanted to look at page 262, just comments from Councillor Porter regarding the risk of flooding that the buildings might have and any mitigation measures that have been taken. Just wondered if you had any comments.
Thank you. So there is a strategic SUDS network that has been approved under the outline plan. In terms of the specific units, so they would feed into the strategic ones, but then additional has been requested, so more details in terms of how surface water will not run off into the protected water area. So that has been conditioned. But otherwise, site-wise, there is a strategic SUD system, which I believe it can be seen.
It's all described on page 276 of the report.
It is. But just for some
condition.
clarification, at the bottom in the red line, in the red dotted area, these are where the SUDs to serve the employment area would be located.
Thank you.
Councillor White?
It's again about a height of the larger buildings. On page 271, it mentions units 7, 9 and 24. And the level changes at the rear of the site would lessen the impact of the mass and bulk of these buildings. Could you just explain how the level changes across the site?
Yeah, thank you. There is a significant level change throughout the site. From the A31, it drops down significantly, about 4 or 5 metres, before going back up to the public open space area, which is again a significant level change. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. There have been details of the levels have been approved previously under a details and compliance application. In terms of the employment area, it would be cut in so that the public open space area would be significantly higher, roughly maybe 3 meters would be visible from there, give or take.
Councillor Clear.
Thank you, Chair. May I just ask, are we happy about the level of lighting proposed and the impact of light pollution, if you like, to nearby residents? If I've missed it, I apologise, but just thought I'd ask.
Thank you. So condition 4 requires details of external lighting. It's on page 279. So at the moment, there hasn't been any specific detail about street lighting or any external lighting on the site, so that would allow for details to be submitted. There are roof lights proposed on the top of on the roofscapes of the units, and an assessment against dark night skies has been done within the national park section, and it was considered that the operation hours, so it would all close down at 6 o'clock, and therefore any lighting, internal lighting, would then be switched off. It wouldn't be visible, and there wouldn't be no impact after 6 o'clock, which was considered to be acceptable.
And I believe it says in condition 4 that the lighting shall not be switched on between the hours of 10 PM and 7 AM. So
That's correct. Yeah.
that will also protect the amenity of local residents. Any further questions, members? No? So we move to debate. Councillor Williams.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'll be very brief on this. I particularly welcome the additional recycling provision and the commitment to planting to screen. It is very disappointing that the trees were removed, which would have screened Unit 1, especially in the first place. So I hope that the developer will be looking to plant those ASAP so that they are able to develop as the continued construction of the units goes on with future applications that will come to us. Overall, I welcome the openness actually of this and the density of the development, including the landscaping planting within the developments itself. So I'll be supporting the application.
Any more? So this application is recommended for approval. Can I see all those in favour of approving this application, please?
That's 9 unanimous, Chair.
All members. Okay, thank you very much. So that is approved with the amended and attached conditions. Thank you. Good. So our next application, item number 12 on our agenda, is it not displaying? Oh, okay. Okay, so our presenting officer is Charlotte Smith. Over to you, Charlotte. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Chair. The proposal is for a garage conversion with new replacement roof with a small pitch and a lantern roof light to allow natural light into the new proposed kitchen. Additionally, the proposal features a single-storey front porch extension with solar panels in the roof slope, replacement windows and the erection of a canopy to the side of the dwelling. Slide 2 presents the location plan. Here you can see the extent of, the extent of the link with number 4 Abbotsand Road and the relationship to the main roads Abbotsand Road and Priorsdean Road. Here's the aerial view of the site with the property indicated by the yellow star here. You can see the mirrored properties on either side of the road here and here, which showcase some uniformity in the local context. The properties on this side of Priorsdean Road are bungalows, but these are unlikely to be affected by the proposal at all. This proposed block plan showcases the extent of the proposed porch extension indicated by the red hatching here. These are the existing floor plans which show the current usage of space without the permission. Slide 6 demonstrates the space as it is proposed to be used, with increased living space on the ground floor, the new proposed canopy over here, the new porch with solar panels here, and the lantern roof light here. This slide showcases the existing elevations against the proposed elevations. Front facing first, then the side closest to Priorsdean Road, then the rear, and then the link attached with number 4 Abbotsand Road. Slide 8 shows the frontage of the property with minimal screening but ample parking. Picture 3 most clearly demonstrates the link with number 4 Abbotsand Road. This slide clearly demonstrates the slope up to the property from Priorsdean Road and the limited views that are afforded of the property due to the topography of the land. Finally, slide 10 shows the rear of the property as it currently stands. You can see the relationship with its closest neighbours, number 4 Abbotsand Road, which is here, and number 74 Priorsdean Road, apologies. Thank you for your attention. I will now hand back to the chair of the committee.
Thank you very much, Charlotte. Could you just confirm to us why this application is at committee?
This application's been referred to committee due to the fact that number 4 Abbotsand Road is owned by a councillor.
And it's link attached to number 4.
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, lovely. Thank you very much. There is no public speaking, so we move straight to any questions, members, on the officer's report, please. Councillor Laming.
With the solar panels putting on the front porch, is there any reflection of the sun onto the properties across the road?
Not as far as can be said. Number 4 Abbotsand Road already has solar panels on their front porch, so it's not proposed that there would be any difference between that and number 2.
So if there are no more questions, we move to debate. Of course, this would normally have been approved under delegated powers. It's simply here as a matter of being completely open and transparent in our decision making. So if there's no debate, we go to the decision. So this application is recommended for approval. Can I see all those in favour, please?
That's 9 unanimous, Chair.
Thank you. So that application is permitted. And we'll have a slight, I think we'll have a break. Shall we have a break? So we'll have a break now of 10 minutes at 2:50 for the next session, and that'll be item 13. Thank you. We're just trying to get a little air into the room. We might open one of the windows in a minute, but we'll see. Okay, next item on our agenda is item number 13, which is the former RAOB club in Cross Keys Passage in central Winchester. And our presenting officer is Robert Green. Over to you, Robert.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon. So just to start with some context, so the application site is located in the centre of Winchester. Just to set some landmark buildings, we have the Guildhall down at the bottom of the image, Woolstaplers Hall here to the right, and this is King's Walk up in the top left. To show some constraints, so the entire image that you see here is within the Winchester Conservation Area. The listed buildings are shown there in pink. And just to have a slightly clearer view as an aerial image, so again you have the Guildhall listed building here and the listed buildings along the Broadway, which goes into the High Street towards the left here. This site is within the central Winchester regeneration area, which is shown outlined by the red line here, which extends all the way up to Middlebrook Street Car Park. The application site is shown here by the red star, and again you have Woolstaplers Hall and King's Walk here. The Central Winchester Regeneration Supplementary Planning Document, or SPD as we call it, includes a public realm framework plan which outlines the areas on the wider regeneration site which are expected to be public realm and those which are expected to be built form. So again, you have the application site outlined by the star, and you have Woolstaplers Hall here in grey. And you can see that there are a number of routes, including across the front of the site, coming under the bus station arch, which is currently here. And you have Cross Keys Passage here. This is a CGI of the proposal from the perspective of Tanner Street. Just note that the parapet has since been removed, so this CGI does include the parapet at the top of the taller building. And so from this view, Woolstaplers Hall is behind the St Clement Surgery building. This shows the wider Context Street elevation. So again, Woolstaplers Hall to the left and the proposal site in the middle. And the below image there, just a wider comparison looking along Silver Hill, bearing in mind that you do have King's Walk building in front here. So just to provide a perspective of the height along that street. Moving on to elevations, and you can see the direction of the elevations by the arrow in the bottom left. So this is the front elevation, the Tanner Street, Silver Hill street elevation, where you have the commercial unit on the bottom floor, and then 6 residential units on the upper floors. This is the Silver Hill or Cross Keys Passage view. So Cross Keys Passage runs to the bottom of the image here alongside the commercial unit. And you can see the outline of Woolstaplers Hall in the background there. This is the equivalent of the rear view, so bear in mind that the listed buildings of the High Street and the Broadway are in the front of this image, and you have Cross Keys Passage just at the bottom left. And the side elevation, so this is the elevation which faces directly toward Woolstaplers Hall from the bus station perspective. Just to note that there is a slight setback of just shy of 2 metres from the Woolstaplers Hall, and there's a 6 metre gap between the side of Woolstaplers Hall and this elevation. Moving on to floor plans, this is the ground floor plan with the commercial unit onto Cross Keys Passage and Silver Hill Tanner Street here, and some supporting residential uses to the back of the site. And then on the upper floors are the 6 residential units, so that's 3 1-beds and 3 2-beds proposed. Moving on to images now, so this is a wireframe view provided by the applicant. So again, you have the listed buildings of the Broadway, Woolstaplers Hall here, and this is the wireframe of the height of the building to the left. So that view was taken from the left-hand pavement here. So this is my own image taken from the centre of the road, bearing in mind there is a right-hand pavement as well. So if you can imagine the Woolstaplers Hall here, the 6 metre gap, and the building in around this area. Jumping across the regeneration site, so to the right is the back of Sainsbury's. So this is looking along Silver Hill with King's Walk to the left. So the proposal sits in front of Wallstaples Hall here, matching the ridge height, which is being shown by my mouse. And a bit of a closer view. So again, just shy of 2 metre setback and height matching the height of the ridge of Wallstaples Hall. This is a view down Crosskeys Passage with the high street to the rear of the image. This is the application site ahead, the white building with the green door, and a closer up image of the building there on the left. This is taken from Tanner Street, again, just to get that perspective of height comparable to Wallstaples Hall on the left, and referring to the public realm framework plan. This will be a route along the bottom of the image here. And a view again, just a bit further down Tanner Street with King's Walk to the right, again, just to get that height perspective. This is a view from the current Coitbury House car park. I would remind members that the view of the cathedral would not be there in the wider regeneration, as we're looking across areas of built form in front of us here. But again, just included to give a height perspective, and the height of the taller building again matches the ridge of Wallstaples Hall. And just a bit of a wider view again from the new Friars Gate Park. This is the view from the other side of Wallstaples Hall. So this is from within the bus station, which under the public realm framework plan would become open space after access from the Broadway. Again, opening up a route towards Silver Hill, where these existing buildings are. So the application site would sit to the opposite side, again with a small setback, but 6 metres away from the side elevation of Wallstaples Hall. And then moving back onto the Broadway, so this is just in front of the Tourist Information Centre. You can see Wallstaples Hall there, and the proposal would be to the left of this, shown by my mouse. And taken a bit further down the Broadway, this time in front of the Guildhall steps. So again, you can see the Wallstaples Hall, the list of buildings along the Broadway, and the application site would be 6 metres to the left here. Officer's recommendation is for refusal of the application. That concludes the presentation, Chair.
Thank you very much. We have just 2 supporters, public speakers for this item. That's Alice Drew and Ross Galtrees. If you'd like to both come forward. I assume one of you is going to speak and then both of you answer questions if necessary. You're both going to share your 3 minutes. Okay, perfect. Well, when you're ready, the microphone's turned on by pressing the button on the base unit, and you will have 3 minutes, and there'll be a timer on the screen for you. Thank you.
Thank you. We're here to invite you to support and approve the application for the redevelopment of the former RAAB Club to provide 6 new high-quality homes and a commercial unit at ground floor, which will activate Crosskeys Passage and enhance the public realm. Throughout the application, significant proactive engagement with the council was undertaken. The number of meetings held and a timeline for this has been provided to you all ahead of today's committee. Meetings with officers were held to discuss and pragmatically address consultee comments, and the proposals were considered by 2 design review panels, with amended plans gaining their support. The applicant has been very flexible during the consideration of the application and made substantial changes to the proposals to address the comments of the key consultees.
Much of the officer's report is subjective and at times misleading, particularly in relation to the proposal's impact on the character and appearance of the surrounding area. The reality is you won't see the vast majority of the south, west and east elevations of the proposal because of the street pattern and the buildings surrounding it, in both the existing and future conditions. We prepared animations to illustrate this point, but apparently we missed the submission deadline. I have them on here if you're feeling brave. In Colebrook Street, the proposal will appear above the roofs of 154 to 159. However, the wire line included in the officer's report is inaccurate and does not show the reduced height of the latest plans. That aside, the proposal will have minimal impact on this view. Think of the last time you walked along the Broadway and onto the High Street. What were you focused on? What did you notice? I strongly suspect it wasn't the roof of Wallstaples Hall, and the proposal is no taller, because it has been designed in accordance with the CWR design guide, particularly in relation to the height of the hall, and that is why Historic England defined the impact of this view as low and certainly less than substantial. In general, the officers have afforded too much significance to Wallstaples Hall, describing it as a key historic focal point. Yes, it's relatively tall, and yes, it has some nice windows on 2 of the elevations. But other than that, it's a nondescript, landlocked 19th century warehouse. It's not owned by Winchester, and it doesn't form part of the current CWR development plans. It is a big, blank brick box, and that's okay, because it's one of the best hidden buildings in the city. And like the proposal and most city centre buildings, you don't see its sides and back.
The redevelopment of the RAAB Club is hugely important to the central Winchester regeneration area, and the proposals as currently designed will act as a catalyst for the area's regeneration. 10 comments of support were made in respect of the application, and only 3 objections were received. This alone demonstrates that there is a recognised need for the site's redevelopment and highlights the public benefit it would provide to the local area and the immediate public realm. It is confirmed that the proposals can be nutrient neutral through securing credits from an appropriate scheme. We therefore encourage you to consider the benefits of the scheme and invite you to overturn the officer's recommendation and instead support the proposals and vote to approve the application.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Deuce, for sticking to your 3 minutes. Members, do we have any questions of clarification for our supporters? Councillor Ashwell.
Thank you for speaking. Could you say where the residents will be parking?
So, because it's a city centre site, there'll be no parking proposed as part of the proposals, and that's actively encouraged by, I believe, the SPD for the Central Winchester Regeneration Area.
Lovely. Well, thank you very much. You may return to your seats. Thank you. Rob, did you want to add anything before we come to questions?
Yes, please, Chair. Thank you. Just to cover a point there regarding the Historic England comments, and just to reiterate that Historic England and our own historic environment specialists have raised concerns. So the recommendation of Historic England is that they do have concerns regarding the application on heritage grounds related to the conservation area and the surrounding listed buildings as well. So just a point of clarification there.
Thank you. Members, we'll take questions on the whole report. Just give me the page number when you have a question. If you have a question. Councillor Langford-Smith.
Thank you, Chair. Could I just ask the officers for some clarification around what is a non-designated heritage asset and what weight should we attribute to that? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So non-designated heritage assets are listed more, I shouldn't say listed, so you have listed buildings, and then you have non-designated heritage assets which are assigned more locally by the council. They are afforded heritage protection under the local plan, under policy DM31. So they're not listed buildings, but they are locally important for their heritage value.
I think as well, Councillor, the NPPF recognises such assets. So paragraph 209, the effect of an application on the significance of a non-designated heritage asset should be taken into account in determining the application, and when applications that directly or indirectly affect the non-designated heritage asset, a balanced judgment will be required having regard to the scale of any harm or loss and significance of the heritage asset.
So if there are no more questions, we will move to debate. I will kick things off if that's okay. I just wanted to say that the supporters of this proposal said that they considered the officers' views to be subjective. But I would just like to point out that, amongst others, the City of Winchester Trust also objects due to height, roof form, building details and surroundings. And we all have huge respect for the City of Winchester Trust, particularly when we're looking at places that are so important to the city and its redevelopment. I have serious concerns about this application, and I'm perfectly happy to support the officer's recommendation. Anybody else a contribution? Councillor Clear.
Thank you, Chair. I must say to start with, the area, the appearance of the area does at times, it is varied, as it says in the report, but not always in the best way. But I think the height and the scale and the layout, i.e. skyline, that comes into question here. And that is the main reasons that I would support the officers with the refusal on this. Thank you.
Councillor Laming.
Thank you. I concur with Councillor Clare on this. I think it's a very sensitive area, and I don't believe that this particular design is sensitive to the area at all. It's overbearing on listed assets, and I think from that point of view, I fully support the officer's recommendation.
Councillor Williams.
Thank you very much, Chair. No, I echo many of the comments that the members have already commented, especially with this being in the conservation zone. I don't believe this conserves or enhances the Winchester Conservation Zone, and certainly not sympathetic to the historic roofscape. I also have objections in regards to the density of the proposals as well. I shan't comment on the beauty of the building, as that is subjective, as the supporters have mentioned about other aspects as well. So I will be supporting the officer's recommendation for refusal.
So there's no further debate. This application is recommended for refusal. So can I see all those in favour of refusing this application?
That's 9 unanimous in refusal, Chair.
Thank you, Claire. That's all members. Very good. So that application falls.
This application is located at the end of Stockers Avenue within the city of Winchester. The site's northern boundary is with number 44 Stockers Avenue, and this is the side rear garden of this dwelling. To the east of the site is number 46 Stockers Avenue. To the south is a footpath that runs alongside the Royal Winchester Golf Course. And to the west of the site, it backs onto dwellings. It's on Hampton Lane. The site is the garden area of number 44 Stockers Avenue. It's largely clear with vegetation along the boundaries. The land slopes up from Stockers Avenue to the rear of the site up to Hampton Lane. The proposal is for a new dwelling within the garden of 44 Stockers Avenue. This is for a 4-bedroom dwelling, utilising the slope with undercroft parking. And I'll show you the floor plans in a minute. It's an L-shaped building with a green roof. This is the basement plan. As you can see, the parking, 2 parking spaces on the driveway and 2 undercroft parking here. And then they've got a first floor, ground floor, utilising the slope for 4 bedrooms and the living area to the site here. To the north is the existing dwelling number 44, and to the east here is number 46. To show you some sections through the site, this is the proposed dwelling. As you can see, it's a flat roof building. This dotted line is number 44. And there are 36 metres, just over 36 metres from the dwellings on Hampton Lane to the proposed dwelling in the garden of number 44. And this at the bottom here is a section shown of the front of number 44 here, the proposed dwelling to the left of that, and then to the left of that again is number 46. And beyond, above this, are the dwellings on Hampton Lane. To take you through some of the elevations. The proposals were substantially amended during discussions with officers, which removed the top storey amongst a few other things. So I'm going to show you the superseded elevations against the amended elevations. So at the top of the screen is the superseded, and the bottom, as you can see, is the amended, so the removal of that top storey there. This is the front elevation. So as you go into the site, you've got the garage there on the ground floor. This is the proposed side elevation. This would be the elevation that faces south towards the footpath. So as you can see, the top is the superseded elevation with the first floor element, and then the bottom has got that element removed. And this is the proposed rear elevation. So as you can see, the top is the superseded with and the bottom is the amended. So this is the view that you would see from Hampton Lane, but you didn't see it because there's a lot of vegetation between the two sites. And again, the view from the side boundary with number 44, the existing dwelling. So you can see the top superseded and the bottom without the top storey on it there. Let's take you through some photos. This is the front of the existing house, number 44. And this is number 44, as you can see in the middle of the photo, and the proposed driveway would come up to the right of this. The land, you can see, slopes up, and this is the side garden area where the proposed dwelling would be. And this is the side garden, and to the rear of it, to the rear, right in the centre here is the where the footpath runs along the boundary. As you can see, there's a lot of vegetation along those boundaries. And again, this is to the rear with Hampton Lane, so a lot of vegetation along that rear boundary there as well. And this is another one of the side view, side garden, so where the proposed dwelling would be. And this is a photo of where the access is proposed to be, running up alongside the boundary there. The applicant has worked with officers and made significant amendments where appropriate. It's considered that the resulting scheme can be supported. The proposal is for one dwelling in this location and is acceptable and not out of character with the spatial characteristics of the surrounding area. The proposal will be visible from neighbouring properties but will not have an unacceptable adverse impact on residential amenity. Overall, the scheme is well designed and will create a distinctive addition to the local area. The application is therefore acceptable and recommended for approval, subject to conditions in my report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. So we start with our public speaking. We have Fiona Harwood, Alison Henry and Chris Henry down as objectors. And you are Fiona? Good, Mrs. Harwood, welcome. You will have 3 minutes when you started speaking, and the microphone is turned on by pressing the button on the base unit. So just close.
Do I need to share your slides?
There's one slide just
one slide. Do you want to just pop it up before you start? Just as is it just one
Yeah.
Just one image.
Okay.
Sorry about this. I'm really sorry. We should have made sure this was available.
Detached houses with green front gardens and large back gardens, and these plan for neither. The plans are overbearing. This is a steep site with the plot falling 7 metres from the rear of the plot to the road height, and the plan to construct a dwelling right up to the back boundary and forward along the full length of the neighbouring garden to level with the existing house at 44 means that although it appears to be a single storey at the back, it will become 2 storeys at the front of the building, with the main living space being above the first floor height of the surrounding homes. This street view document supplied in the application shows trees and buildings in Hampton Lane from a different scale and perspective that are not in fact visible from the street view of Stockers Avenue and cannot therefore be relied upon to make their decision. The building would be too close to the boundary, and this has implications both in terms of the impact on neighbouring properties at 41 Hampton Lane and 46 Stockers Avenue, but also has a significant impact on biodiversity. The Ecological Impact Report from the 9th of September states that mitigation measures would need to be put in place in order to achieve the required net gain. These include the retention of border hedges that are either planned for removal or would be irretrievably damaged by the 11-metre long and 4-metre deep excavations required to construct the basement store so close to the boundary. Currently in full sun, any surviving hedge would then be in full shade once the building is constructed and would not survive.
The recommendation of the planning officer is based on the assumption that the hedge between the site and number 46 would be retained to prevent overlooking, when this hedge is in fact planned for removal to accommodate the access drive. There are also fire access concerns. The fire access statement supplied in the application relies on drawings supplied by the architect. They're based on a fire appliance of smaller dimensions than the minimum measurements given in the Hampshire Fire and Rescue Guidance for domestic properties. This means that even with the demolition of part of the existing property, an appliance of the correct size would be too wide, too long and too heavy to pass up the access and too high to pass under the overhang of the building. The turning circle shown does not include the footprint of the building and would in fact pass into the garage and ground floor of that building. We therefore ask that these plans be rejected on the basis that they are contrary to CP 13 of the Local Plan Part 1 and DM 15, 16 and 17 of the Local Plan Part 2, as well as the intention of the St Barnabas Neighbourhood Design Statement. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's the end of your 3 minutes as well. Thank you. Thank you. Members, do we have any questions of clarification for Mrs. Harwood? No? Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Jessie. Thank you very much. We now have Councillor Johnny Morris, the ward councillor. Councillor Morris, you have up to 5 minutes when you're ready. Thank you very much.
Okay, I have 6 points and I'll rattle through them as quickly as I can. The first point made by Mrs. Howard is that the driveway and access road requires the hedge border with number 46 to be removed, and the ground if it remain will be reduced to a narrow strip, so the planted plants will not be of sufficient height or density to act as a screen for the property with number 46. So I suggest that the plan be resubmitted with additional space for the boundary with number 46 so that the hedge border can be retained. Point 2 is that residents have expressed concern that the driveway and access road is too narrow for access for a fire engine to enter the property or to manoeuvre next to the development. There does not seem to be a fire safety assessment of the development made, so I recommend that no decision is made until there has been a fire risk assessment and it has given a positive outcome. Point 3 is that the proposed development requires excavation right up to a hedge at the west of the property, which forms a boundary with 41 Hampton Lane and bounds onto a sink and a nature corridor. So while there might be an intention to preserve the hedge, the excavation will be so close that it will inevitably undermine the hedge's root system and cause it to die off and require replanting. So I suggest the plan be resubmitted with either less extensive excavation or with several meters of clear ground between excavation and hedge in order to ensure its continued survival. Point 4 is, as noted by the Winchester Trust, this proposal is over large for the site as it uses up over half the land area. The ground plan you've seen may give the impression that there is a large part in the middle which has been designated garden, but much of that is in fact the turfed roof of a proposed garage. So while it will look like a lawn from a bird's eye view, it will not provide the water retention and drainage of genuine gardening land. So I think that should be regarded when you make a decision as part of the development footprint rather than as part of the garden area. I suggest the plan for this be resubmitted on a less grandiose scale. My 5th point is regarding the biodiversity impact, which is a particular concern with this property as I say, it's adjacent to a sink, and therefore your consideration is not just about the impact on the biodiversity within the site, but on its impact within the adjoining sink. Therefore, if the application is approved, I suggest that all the recommendations and conditions made for the biodiversity for the upcoming house extension should apply here, and all the conditions here should apply to the house extension, so that there is no contradiction or confusion between those two conditions, because at the moment there are some differences, and it would be of use for the most exact and strict conditions to apply to both developments. I also suggest that both applications use as a basis for the conditions the entirety of section 5 of the updated ecology report dated 9th of September 2024, and not just sections 5.13 and 6.5, as they only include certain recommendations and don't include all the recommendations made in the ecology report in section 5. To give one example, but there are others, item 5.7, the retention of the existing boundary vegetation to preserve existing biodiversity. That's currently not listed in one of the conditions, and if you included the whole of section 5, that would be included. And finally, with 1 minute to go, if the application is approved with the conditions I've suggested, I also suggest one more condition, which is, given the large scale of the excavation and the impact that will have on the neighbours, that you condition that there's no Saturday working during the process. I think that would be a very positive step to show consideration and goodwill to those in neighbouring properties. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions of clarification for Councillor Morris? No? Thank you very much. You may return to your seat. So we now turn to the supporters Claire White and Jeremy Terrell. If you'd like to come forward. Right. I think you have some slides as well to show, and you have 3 minutes between you, so I'll leave you to. Yes.
Thank you, Chair. If I could just clarify, we're going to share the 3 minutes. Mrs. White is the applicant, my client.
Right.
And I'm the architect. So
lovely.
Claire is going to go first.
Welcome.
Thank you. Do I need to switch it on?
So you will have 3 minutes from when you've started. Are we ready with the slideshow? Yes. So whenever you're ready, thank you.
I grew up in Winchester near Stockers Avenue and always admired the area. Nearly 5 years ago, we purchased number 44 as our family home for our 3 sons. This application makes efficient use of our garden space whilst respecting the neighbourhood's character. We've addressed concerns about privacy, light and parking through design adjustments in consultation with planning officers. We believe that the proposal aligns with local policies and enhances housing in a sustainable way. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. The design presented to you is the result of a thorough and extensive process of analysis and proactive discussion. The site is quite unique in terms of its shape and size compared to its immediate surroundings. It therefore requires a site-specific design response. Being tucked away in a corner, it is barely visible from the public realm, thereby not adversely affecting the character of the area. We carried out a pre-application, which concluded the plot is suitable for development. Have the next slide, please. We worked closely with your officers and your urban designer. This resulted in us scaling back the size and footprint of the initial proposal. The originally submitted planning application featured an element of first floor accommodation. This was removed following discussion with your case officer and in response to neighbours' concerns regarding overlooking. We feel we have been very accommodating with this amendment, which is a significant reduction and concession in direct response to comments received. The proposed building has also been moved further away from the boundary to ensure a 2.5 metre wildlife corridor between fence and building. Providing the same is observed on the other side of the fences, a 5 metre corridor can easily be achieved. Next slide, please. The resulting design is a dwelling of modest scale, commensurate in scale with the surrounding context. At 19% site coverage, the average in the area is between 15 and 20. It is a low-rise dwelling with a flat green roof, making it inconspicuous as the site is very tucked away from public view behind boundary trees, hedges and fences. Next slide, please. The proposed drive is in the position of the original access, evidenced by the dropped curb, which remains in existence. The proposed dwelling makes efficient use of underused surplus garden land, It will be a highly energy efficient dwelling in a highly sustainable location. There have been no objections from any of your statutory consultees. The development is recommended for permission as it is considered it will not result in a harmful impact on the character of the area or highway safety and would not harm residential amenity. We therefore hope you will follow your officer's recommendation to approve this application. I'm happy to take questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll kick off the questions of clarification, if I may. You have one of the concerns raised by the local councillor and indeed the residents was access for fire engines. Can you comment on the fact that they consider that the drive is not wide enough?
Thank you, Chair. We had a highways consultant carry out a tracking diagram and who advised on the width of the driveway. So the width is 3.7 metres, sufficient for access. The turning has also been proven to be sufficient, as is the distance. If there were any doubt upon the distance from the highway and an appliance not being able to reach, then a simple solution would be to install an fire hydrant, and that would be covered under building regulations. So it's not a planning matter in my regard, and your highways team have not objected.
Members, any other questions of clarification? Sorry. Oh, Councillor White, thank you.
It's about the distance on the northern boundary between the new property and number 44. I think you said a wildlife corridor of 2.5 metres, but on here it just says it's only 1.1 metres. I'm not sure which is correct. What is the distance between the back of the building and the boundary of number 44?
Bear with me, I can measure that. The 2.5 I referred to was on the western boundary,
okay,
with the properties at the rear of Hampton Lane. Yes, the building is close to the proposed boundary with existing house number 44. Yes, that's approximately 1.5 metres.
So the western.
No, so the northern boundary.
Yeah, the northern boundary is the narrow one, and then okay, thank you.
All happy? Lovely. Well, thank you very much indeed for your time. You may return to your seats. Thank you. So, Megan, following our public contributions, did you want to add anything before we come to members' questions?
No, thank you, Chair.
Members, questions on the report? Councillor White.
So, leading on from my previous question about the boundary, I'm a bit confused about the boundary treatment on the northern side, whether what's going to be retained, and obviously because there's only 1.1 metres, what space there is there for a boundary treatment or any hedging, and also what's the proposed boundary treatment on the western boundary.
The northern boundary we're talking about the northern boundary to start off with. So the northern boundary with number 44 Stockers Avenue, existing house is approximately 1.2 metres to the boundary. As you can see on this proposed site plan, there is an amount of vegetation proposed towards the front end of that boundary, but nothing proposed on the rear, apart from there is in the number 44. So there are some trees on number 44 side. There is a condition requesting boundary treatment details, so that will be submitted as part of the application conditions.
Councillor Williams.
Thank you very much, Chair. I just wanted to follow up in regards to the comments made about fire access. I know in previous applications we haven't been able to sort of refuse a planning application because the access isn't wide enough for fire access, and then it goes down to, I think, building regulations in regards to fire. I was just wondering whether it could clarify what weight we could put on that for considering this application.
I would be led by building regulations, as in it wouldn't be allowed to be built. So it would potentially get planning permission, but it wouldn't be allowed to be built if you couldn't get building regulations for it under the fire regulations.
Thank you. I had a second question, if that's okay. It's in regards to condition 18, which withdraws permitted development rights. I was just wondering if we could expand just for members of the public what that would entail.
Yeah, so it proposes to remove A, B, C, D and E. So A is for extensions to dwelling houses, B is for roof extensions, and C is the same, similar roof extensions. D is for porches, and E is for outbuildings. So anything under those permitted development rights would require planning permission and would seek that from the local authority, and we would then review that as part of the planning application.
Could I ask about the ecology? There's no requirement for a 10% net gain, is there, on this application?
There isn't, no, it was submitted before the deadline for the 10% net gain.
But there is an ecology report which was referred to by Councillor Morris, and he seemed concerned that not all of those proposals or not all of that was going to be conditioned.
There is an ecology report. I've just rechecked the conditions. In the condition for the dwelling house, it conditions the whole of the ecology report to be complied with, and not just a particular section within that ecology report. Then when we get onto the next application for the extension, it does specifically pick out sections of it. But that can be amended if the councillors wish to do so. No. Yes.
Condition 13.
Condition 13
covers the entire ecology report for the new dwelling.
Yes.
So that is covered. Okay. Yeah. And there was concern about water runoff from green roofs, and that they were not as adequate at dealing with water, rainwater, and so on as ordinary garden. Although it's on the plans as garden, it's clearly built over the garage. Can you comment on that? Is that covered in the? And I'm sure we've got a condition on everything, but.
Yeah, there were no objections from our drainage engineer, and there is a condition regarding drainage. And I can't remember the number. Number 11, which covers the foul and surface water runoff. Details to be submitted.
The details to be submitted. Yeah. So we'll make sure that that is adequate.
Correct.
Covered. Perfect. Okay. Any other questions? Councillor Ashwell.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Morris suggested in the condition number 4 about the working hours and possibly not working on a Saturday. Is that something we're considering to approve that could be changed or amended?
The informative, you mean? Not informative number 4.
Yeah, Chairman, if I might just say, it isn't informative because it's not something we look to control through planning regime, and it's dealt with by our public protection team in terms of statutory nuisance. And this is the guidance that it is reasonable on Saturdays to have some element of working hours, Chair. So I don't think it'd be reasonable for us to, whatever we said in our informative, it is an informative, but you know, we can't trip up another wing of the council in terms of where they can identify that there's a statutory nuisance. So I think the informative is well tested, Chair, and fits in terms of where we can and can't take enforcement action or regulatory action via other bodies in our organisation.
Thank you, but the applicant is here and has heard concerns, so perhaps that is in their control as well. So. Okay, any other questions, members? Let me check if I've got that. There was some concern that the square footage of the new building is out of sync with other dwellings in the area, in that it's significantly larger. Can you comment on that? If you could go back to the floor plans that show the basin area. Yeah, so there is a very large basement store, isn't there? Yes, but would that normally be regarded as living space? Counted in as living space?
Yeah, it would be. It'd be it could be used as living space, although there aren't any windows, so it's not really a nice space to be in. It would be, we would look at the footprint rather than the overall floor area in this instance, and I don't think that the footprint of this dwelling is out of character with the surrounding dwellings in the area.
Okay, thank you very much. So if there are no more questions on the report, we move to debate. Councillor Williams?
Thank you very much, Chair. I do recognise that through Councillor Morris and the representations from the objectors that this is, you know, an emotive application that's come through. However, we have to go from our planning policy. You know, through that, I think, and through the conditions that have been attached, I do think that mitigates many of the concerns that have been raised. I do understand the conditions in regards to fire access. However, that is something out of our control as a planning committee, and will come down to building regulations. So from that aspect, with this application becoming for the biodiversity net gain mandatory targets brought in by the government, we are unable to unfortunately condition that. However, I would encourage the developer to try and seek as much biodiversity net gain on the site as possible, including with regards to the proposed grass roof. Although the councillors and the objectors have put forward, you know, a decent case, we unfortunately must view this on our planning policy. So I'll be supporting the officer's recommendation to approve the application.
Any more debate? Councillor Laming?
Thank you, Chair. I take the objections quite seriously, particularly from the Winchester Trust. But we have to bear in mind the policies that we have in force, and that's quite important for us. It's also quite an imaginative design in keeping with the work and that area. So as it's been built into the grounds as such, I think it's going to be less obtrusive than some of the other buildings that we see. So I should be supporting the officer's recommendation on this.
Thank you, Councillor Laming. So if there's no more contributions to debate, we take the decision. This application is recommended for approval by our officers. Can I see all those in favour of approving this application?
That's 9 unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much. So that application is approved. We now move on to item number 15, which is also at 44 Stockers Avenue, Winchester. And again, our presenting officer is Megan Osborne. When you're ready, Maggie. Thank you very much, Megan.
Thank you. This application is for extensions to number 44 Stockers Avenue and a garden room to the rear. The outline of the house is on your screen now. And this shows the location. So the application that was just before was to the south of this site, which is the blue line, and you can see the outline of the proposed dwelling there. And this is the extensions for number 44. So in the grey, you can see the extent of the extensions, and the in the rear garden is the proposed garden room used as an office. So to the north of this property is number 42. You can see that northern boundary there. To the south is this garden area, and then south of that's number 46. And again, the footpath that runs along the golf course to the south of that, and to the west are the houses on Hampton Lane. The proposals are for a 2-storey extension to the front of the dwelling and a single-storey extension to the rear, a balcony, and a proposed home office in the rear garden. Take you through the elevation, sorry. Again, there were discussions with the applicant and significant changes were made. So I'll take you through the superseded and amended proposals for each of the elevations as well. So you can see this is the front extension, the front of the house, 2-storey front extension here, and to the side there was a 2-storey or first floor extension over the top here. However, that has been removed as part of this proposal. And this is the side elevation. So this is siding on to the garden area where the proposed dwelling would be. There is a balcony area, but it's set back. I'll show you on the floor plans. And this is the 2-storey extension to the front here. There is a proposed window on this elevation, but that is for a bathroom, therefore would be obscurely glazed. This is the rear elevation of the dwelling. To the left, you can see the superseded, so the full extent of the first floor extension to the side, and that has been removed as part of this proposal and the amendment. And then the single-storey extension to the rear, and the balcony has been moved as well, and away from that side boundary with the garden of number 44. So this is the side elevation, the side that sides on to number 42 Stockers Avenue. And as you can see, the superseded elevation is to the left-hand side of the screen. And it showed, you can't really see it as well on this elevation, but there was this single-storey first floor extension here, which has been taken back. And then the 2-storey front extension here and the single-storey extension to the side here. Just take you through the floor plans. Again, the superseded against amended, no changes to the floor plans. So they are exactly the same as they were in terms of the amendments and the superseded. So the proposal proposes 2-storey extension of the front, and then to the rear is a single-storey extension that wraps around here. And if it's showing the first floor, so the amendments include that it was extending out this element here to make a larger bedroom, and that's been removed completely. And then the 2-storey extension to the front, extending the bedroom area to the front. And then you can see the single-storey element here, and the changes made to that balcony area, which was a lot longer and has now been reduced in size. And this are the elevations and floor plan of the proposed garden office to the rear, in the rear garden. Just take you through some photos. So this is the front of the dwelling house. This is number 44 straight in front of you, number 42 to the right. You can't really see the other dwellings, so number 46 is there to the left. And the proposed front of the dwelling, the existing front of the dwelling, and the proposed sketch to the right-hand side of the screen showing what the proposal would look like. This is the rear of the dwelling. So the ground floor extension to the rear, single-storey extension to the rear would go here, balcony to the centre of the site here. And this is this side elevation, so single-storey extension would be seen here, the balcony area. And this is looking from number 44 Stockers Avenue towards the proposal. So this element here will remain unchanged. And the 2-storey extension will be seen over here. I think I've got a photo there, so coming out to the front here. And again, standing in their garden. So this element will remain unchanged apart from the single-storey extension that comes around here. So there'll be no 2-storey extension. And this is the proposed location of the outbuilding, the garage to the rear of the garden. The applicant has worked with officers to make amendments where requested. This resulted in a scheme that is acceptable in relation to neighbouring amenities. The proposal is of an appropriate scale and design in relation to the existing dwelling and character of the surrounding area. Therefore, this application is recommended for approval, subject to the conditions as set out in my report. Thank you.
Thank you. We now move to public speaking, and we have Fiona Alison and Chris again. Are you going to speak on behalf of everybody again, Mrs. Harwood? Thank you. And again, you have up to 3 minutes when you're ready. Do you want that image back up? The same one again, please. Lovely. Thank you.
Thank you again for letting me speak. We feel that the plans for the redevelopment of this property have been heavily limited by the decision to try and squeeze a second property onto the site, and as a result the proposed development is a compromise design which contains some troubling features and should be taken in conjunction with the cumulative impact of the neighbouring property proposed. The plans include a balcony which would involve a loss of privacy to both number 42 and 46 Stockers Avenue due to its proposed position. The hedging that currently shields 46 from this view would need to be removed to create access to the new property in the back garden and would result in a view straight into the corner bedroom of 46. At 42, we have a direct view of the position of the balcony from the main living area of our home, patio and garden, and it would be fair to conclude that the view would be the same in the other direction. We would therefore ask that the balcony be removed or that conditions be imposed to erect a fully opaque screens of at least 2 metres to both sides. The proposals would result in a net loss in biodiversity. The ecological impact report for the accompanying application relies on the retained garden for 44 being unaltered, where in fact the plans propose significant re-landscaping to the rear of property and replacing the front garden with hard landscaping to accommodate parking and access to the new property. This will also transform the character of the street to a much more urban one from the existing green gardens currently enjoyed, and would expose 46 to the street view as well. It would also result in a net loss of biodiversity, in particular in relation to the slow worms acknowledged in the ecological impact report. They're a regular sight along the border of our property with 44 and are known to nest in the current dry stone wall landscaping proposed for removal. The current proposals for a few bird or bat boxes will not provide sufficient mitigation for the damage caused. The proposals for the garden office raise some concerns. With no clear measurements and inconsistent scaling shown on the plans, it's difficult to ascertain the exact position of the proposed building. Of greater concern is the street view supplied with the accompanying application shown here, which appears to show the building C as a proposed structure of a pitched roof design of substantially larger proportions, more akin to a full-size house. We would require conditions that any such structure be restricted to the single-storey flat roof construction shown in the original plans. The combination of the first floor extension to the front of the property, blocking the morning light we receive to the rear of number 42, the higher level of the ground floor extension to the rear, and the proposed new dwelling effectively raising the horizon for afternoon and evening light would result in a noted reduction in light to our home at 42 throughout the day. And we do ask that if any of these part of these plans to be permitted to go ahead, that the building work be restricted to weekday working only, with no Saturday working. The scale of these proposals would result in significant disruption to neighbouring properties on all sides, and weekend respite would be a welcome expression of goodwill to those impacted. And sorry, I recognise I went slightly over.
That's fine, thank you. Very helpful. Thank you. Members, do we have any questions of clarification for our Mrs. Harwood, the neighbour, next door neighbour? No. Thank you very much, Mary Josie. Thank you. And now we welcome back Councillor Morris. Councillor Morris, you have up to 5 minutes when you're ready.
Thank you. I may reiterate some of the points made by Mrs. Howard, so please forgive me if I do so. As you've seen from the plans, the design of the rear balcony has already been modified once to reduce the length of the balcony, but there is still an issue that it overlooks neighbouring properties, number 42 and 46. I suggest that the design is modified further to remove the balcony in totality, as it is a non-essential feature of the application. or that you put conditions on the application so that the balustrade of the balcony is raised to about 2 meters and glazed at either end and made of an opaque or translucent material to effectively act as a privacy screen for the two neighbouring properties. I think that'd be an easy compromise to put in a condition. Point 2 is, although no urban design assessment has been made on this application, the assessment on the application you previously assessed at 44 Stockers Avenue identified overlooking issues within the bounds of this application. I'll quote it. It's when the changes proposed at 44 Stockers Avenue, as per planning application 23/02553/HOU, are set aside this application, there are issues regarding character of area, overlooking and overbearingness needing extra examination. I'll put that in bold, extra examination. And therefore I suggest this application be deferred until an urban design assessment has been made on this application and that extra examination has actually been performed. Point 3, as indicated in that urban design assessment, the landscaping at the front of the house would not be in character with the street, which has a very consistent look of combined driveways and sloped steep gardens at the front of each house. And the proposal here is that the house will have multiple driveways and no front garden to speak of. So I therefore suggest the plan is resubmitted with a design which is consistent with the look of the rest of Stockers Avenue. Point 4 is picking up on the illustration provided by Mrs. Harwood, the design drawing submitted on the 7th of March, number 2105B, PR 201B, boundary section street scene elevation. It seems to indicate that the planned office building will have a second story and or sloped roof. Now, this drawing seems to have slipped through by inaccuracy, by cock-up rather than conspiracy. But I suggest that it should be formally disregarded from any consideration you make of this application, so that if you approve this application, it is not misinterpreted as you approving that design in that picture. And it is only you approving the single-storey building proposed elsewhere in the application. And finally, to restate the point I made on the other application regarding the biodiversity impact, that all conditions made on the other application should apply here and vice versa, so that there are no discrepancies and there are no rooms for an omission on the conditions here to be interpreted as if it doesn't apply here, then it won't apply to the other property either. It should be that anything that applies to the other property also applies here. And so if that could be put into the conditions in some way, that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Morris. Any questions of clarification before he returns to his seats? Make you sit down again and there's no questions. I'm sorry, Johnny. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. Right, now we turn back to the applicant and agent, please. Mrs. White and Mr. Terrell. Again, you have 3 minutes between you. I'm sure you've agreed how you're going to sort that out. Thank you.
Thank you. As a family of 5 with 3 growing boys, our current home doesn't fully meet our needs, especially as we don't have any ensuite bathrooms. The proposed changes would make an enormous difference to our day-to-day life, allowing us to create a more functional and comfortable space for all of us. The garden office is a modest addition, but important for managing our work and family life more efficiently. We've been mindful of the character of the area and the concerns raised by our neighbours, which is why we've worked closely with our architect to ensure that the design is sensitive and doesn't negatively impact anyone. We've also adjusted the plans to address any worries about privacy and overdevelopment. Ultimately, this isn't just about a house, it's about creating a home where our boys can thrive as they grow up. We hope that you can see the careful thought behind these plans and support us in making these improvements to our family home. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Chair.
We've made significant concessions to this application in order to appease the immediate neighbour. In our view, only the one neighbour at number 42 is affected by this application. It should be noted that number 44 is set back by a full house depth than it is from number 42, and it is to the south of it, so hence number 44 already overshadows and overlooks the garden of number 42. We met with Mr. and Mrs. Harwood once the initial designs were prepared, and we listened to their concerns about overshadowing and loss of light. We also read the objection letters received from them, and we discussed the matters with the case officer, Mrs. Osborne. As a result, our client has taken a very conciliatory approach, and it was agreed to remove the element of the proposed first floor extension, which extended closer to the boundary with number 42. Furthermore, an existing first floor window in the side elevation is proposed to be removed. The modest first floor front extension will not have a significant effect upon number 42, as their ground floor living room on the south side has good front and rear aspects and good natural light. The proposed garden office is allowable within Class E of the property's permitted development rights. We have included it within this householder application simply for efficiency in order to avoid the need for a separate certificate of lawfulness application to your authority. This application seeks to improve a dated home to make it more suitable for modern family living, whilst at the same time improving its energy efficiency and environmental performance. We hope you will follow your officer's recommendation to approve this application. I'm happy to take questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tyrrell. Any questions of clarification? Councillor Williams.
Thank you very much, Chair. I just wanted to clarify, there were concerns raised about the garden outbuilding being two-storey. I just wanted to clarify that in condition 3, obviously, we've got the garden office being drawing 2105A_PR_101, and that's single-storey with a flat roof, as in the picture on screen there.
That's correct, Councillor. I think there was some misinterpretation of the street scene elevation. The structure that Mrs. Harwood was referring to is actually the back of number 39 Hampton Lane in the distance, which has a two-storey pitched roof element to the rear of it. The proposed garden office would not be visible in that street scene elevation.
And flat roof.
Exactly, as in the drawing that came on the screen. Yes.
Councillor Langford-Smith.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just looking at the proposed west elevation and the balcony. I appreciate that the balcony has been made significantly smaller than on the superseded elevation. How feasible is it to put a screen on the side that faces number 42?
Thank you, Councillor. It would be entirely feasible if it was deemed necessary. I think any overlooking would be de minimis there, given the amount of boundary screening on the shared boundary. It's not something that your case officer has suggested or sort of insisted upon.
Thank you very much. I don't think there are any more questions, so thank you if you would like to return to your seats. Thank you. Megan, did you want to make any comments before we move to questions?
Yes, please. I just wanted to pick up something on Councillor Morris stated about the urban design comments. These work comments were made as part of the planning application and were considered by me, and I made an assessment on the application as well. And we met with the applicant and Mr. Tyrrell regarding the proposal, and I considered the first scheme to impact the neighbouring property, and that's why I suggested and asked for the amended plans to be submitted, and now I believe that they are acceptable in relation to that neighbouring amenity area. And picking up regarding the balcony area, it's approximately 10.7 metres from the side of the balcony to the boundary with number 42, and I don't deem that to be an unacceptable level of overlooking. However, you can take a view on that.
Thank you. So, members, we turn to questions on the report. Do we have any questions for our officer? Councillor Laming.
Thank you, Chair. I would like the opinion on the change to the front of the building where you're doing away with the normal grass fronted area compared to the rest of the street. So you're changing the impact on the neighbourhood.
Sorry, I don't understand. We're doing away with the glass. Which area are you referring to?
I think he's concerned about the loss of grass.
Grass.
At the front,
Yeah,
not
sorry.
grass.
It's all right, it's my mumbling.
Yeah, I consider that to be acceptable in this instance. It doesn't need to meet the biodiversity gain in this extension or this application, so therefore it's acceptable under planning terms.
Is there any way we can make that permeable? That extra parking area at the front?
Yeah, I believe it probably would be anyway, as part of the proposed. I don't know what the proposed material would be, but that's a detail that we would look at under the hard landscaping condition.
So under the hard landscaping condition, we will look at all of the hard landscaping proposed and expect it all to be permeable.
Yes, we bet, yeah.
Can I ask, do any of the neighbours have balconies?
There is a small balcony on the rear that I saw on the rear of number 46. However, they having works done, so I don't know whether that's been removed or not. But I couldn't see any on the other immediate dwellings.
But you don't consider there's any overlooking from that small balcony? That
not the size it is now and the location it is now. I think it's sufficient distance away from the boundaries. I don't think it results in any adverse impact to overlooking to the neighbouring properties.
Slow worms were a consideration, a concern?
They were concerned with part of the new dwelling, and that they were building on slow worm habitat, where the ecologist has written a report and translocated them into a section of the garden, and that is now acceptable with our ecologist, and that's why that condition's been put on, which would have been put on anyway, the ecology condition, but specifically those changes have been made.
Any other oh yes, Councillor White, sorry.
So Councillor Morris mentioned about having the same conditions on both of the applications to ensure we had the strictest conditions, and also I suppose it simplifies things. Would that be possible, or are they treated very separately?
They're very different applications. So the proposed dwelling would have conditions regarding SAP calculations, for example, which we would ask for in any new dwelling. We wouldn't ask for that on an extension to a dwelling house. We couldn't remove PD. There was a number of things that wouldn't be reasonable to do. And I think he referred specifically as well to the ecology condition. They are two separate ecology reports, so they are conditioned differently, and that's why they are different.
So if there are no more questions, we move to debate. No? Any debate? I'd just like to say I think that the amended design does respect the neighbour, and I think it removes what might have been an issue in terms of overbearing and potential overshadowing of the neighbour's garden. I think the stepping back of the first story extension is a good way of dealing with that, and I don't consider that extended this house is any bigger or more massive than any of the other neighbours. I've looked on the aerial shots of neighbouring homes, and most of them either have already or are in the process of being extended to at least this extent. And this is nothing unusual in that area. So I'm happy, content to, with all the conditions and the consideration that we've given to this application, and that has been very careful consideration. But with all those conditions, I'm happy to support the officer recommendation. Councillor Clear.
Thank you. I just wanted to say I think the amended plans are far better, much better. And I personally think it will make the property, if you like, enhance the appearance of the property. So I do support the officers.
Councillor Laning.
I would like us to consider a condition on this to have a fake glass on either side of the balcony, because I do think that would give some comfort to the neighbours, which they deserve.
You have a seconder for that proposal? I think our officer is quite clear that they don't consider that there is an overlooking issue from that small balcony. So I'm sorry. I don't think we're agreeing with that, are we? All right, members, we now move to the decision. So this application is recommended for approval. Can I see all those in favour of approval, please?
Nine, Chair, that's unanimous.
So that's unanimous. So that application is approved. Thank you very much. And that marks the end of today's planning committee. Thank you.
There's no point in voting against it without condition going on.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.